Hey everybody, this is Paul Pavolny. I'm in the car line waiting to pick up my daughter on her birthday, and so I thought I'd create a quick video, talk to you about the name Voppa. I've had people ask me, I've gone to a meeting and somebody says, well, before we start, what is the meaning of Voppa? And so I thought, well man, it might be good to actually do a video to talk to you about what Voppa means, and then maybe at the end, if I get a chance, we'll also talk about how to name your company or some ideas on naming a company as well. And so the story of Voppa, well, you know, a long time ago in a place called Oz, there was a chubby little wog with a funny little name. And that was me. I had a name that most people have a hard time pronouncing. Pavolny, it's Pa-Vol, V-O-L-N-E is the way you pronounce it, Pavolny. But I went to an all-boys high school, and in this all-boys high school, it was a trade school. Basically, we learned how to build things and make things, and I was terrible at it. But I had a lot of great friends there, and usually we called ourselves by our last names. And so I had, hey, Grimma. Grimma is one of my mates from high school. We called Grimma. We had a guy called Cilia. We had Duffy, and then we had a guy we called One Guy. I don't even remember how we came up with the word one guy, but we called him One Guy, and that name followed him, I think, for most of his life. But anyway, we called ourselves by our last names, and so my name was Pavolny, and most people did not weren't able to pronounce it very easily, and so they called me Pava for the longest time. And so one day we were just saying our names backwards, and we were saying our names backwards, and mine was Inlavop. And they said, man, that sounds cool. Let's call you Voppa. And so I was like, sure, call me Voppa. And so that's how I became Voppa, through a nickname in high school. And there are many people that didn't even know my real name. They only knew me as Voppa. And so that was my name. And so when it came time to naming my own business, I thought, well, why not just name it something that relates to me and also is something interesting that would be pretty easy to get things like URLs or business name registration. Actually, when I first started calling myself Voppa, it was even before the internet was what it is today. And so it became Voppa. It became my business name. And so that's the origin of that name. Duffy, one of my mates, Duffy, came up with the word One Guy. And then you could read the rest of Grimma's description. I had dinner with One Guy and Grimma and Cilia and Duffy when I was visiting Australia a while ago. But when it comes to choosing a great name, one of my mentors is Eric Hughes, and he's a brilliant creative mind. And he once said that a good name is a great name. And, you know, a lot of people want names like Apple or Google or Nike or things like that. But some of those names, when they originally came up with them, there were people that says, what kind of a name is Google? That's so stupid. You know, let's call it something computer or something search, or even Apple didn't seem like it made sense when you relate it to computers. But those names became great because of their reputation, because of what they represented. And so when you're choosing a name, finding a good name really is a great choice. And the name becomes what you put into it. And so there are different ways to choose a name. You could choose a name based on the founder of an organization like a Disney or a Forbes or a Dell computer. You can choose it based on the reputation of the founder, the inspiration of the founder, or whatever reason, but it's named after a founder. You can have an acronym. KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, recently became simply KFC. There's AOL. There's different companies that are simply acronyms. There are ones that have meaning, where it's tied into like an Amazon, where the biggest river, which a lot of stuff flows through, things like that. You can have things like a made-up word. You know, Voppa is kind of after the founder and also a made-up word. But there are different ways. I'm going to have to move here slowly in this line. But it can be just a made-up word. Haagen-Dazs is a made-up word. It's not a real thing. And so you can come up with a made-up word or a combination of words or a misspelling of a word. And so there's a lot of different ways, and this is way too much to cover in a Facebook Live. But there are different ways to name a company. And I've been a part of naming companies and naming products for a long time. And so it's a great. There is a process to it. It's not as easy as a quick Facebook Live. But those are some things to think about. The other thing is, does a name mean something different than what you expect in a foreign language? There have been car companies that have named vehicles certain names only to find out that in a certain country it actually meant it doesn't move. And so watch what those foreign meanings of those made-up words or those words are. The other thing to think about is the URL available? Is it something that you could really easily own? And that's getting more and more challenging because it seems like every normal word is pretty much taken. And so a lot of people started making up words. And so you got the Googles and the Yahoos and things like that. And also, you need to be careful that if the URL is available, that it doesn't, when you combine the words together in a URL, it doesn't say something that you don't want it to say. I'm familiar with a couple of companies that with their URL, when they combined their name with no spaces, it actually said some stuff that wasn't good. And so be careful about that kind of stuff as well when not only naming your company but also purchasing a URL. Look at the word very closely to make sure it's not saying something that you don't want it to say. So there is a couple of things to think about when naming a company. There's a lot more: availability, competition, what you want people to feel about the company, what you want it to say, and then also having a good tagline helps sometimes with, if it is a word that isn't an obvious word, that a tagline will help define what that word becomes. But a good name is a great name, as Eric Hughes once said. And hopefully that helps you. Thanks for joining me, guys. Grimmer, a couple of people from Australia. Donovan, Vigil, thanks for joining me. Ian, Cranfield, Tim Peters. Great to see you guys. Hope this has helped. Please share it with somebody. And I hope to talk to you later. I'm about to go pick up my daughter for her 12th birthday. Can't believe it. Pretty excited about it. You guys have a great day. I'm out.